I wish the rest of the story was a poem, but I've written all out of beautiful words. And the story, of course, is about me. I went to the doctor. He said I had an infection called chlamydia, which can be cured, but that I should get a blood test for something else, something deadly. He said I had a virus. He said it would lead to a more serious condition. I asked a lot of questions. Questions were pouring into my head and spilling out of my mouth. Did I get this from having sex? But I only had sex once. Is that all it takes? Could I have stopped it if I used a condom? Will I get very sick? What about the new medications? Will they cure me? Is there a cure?
I don't see Jill anymore. She wants to, but I can't look at her. I talked her into it, you know? I talked her into having sex, and I didn't use any protection. I wanted to be that close to her. I love her. And it was beautiful. But it could have been so much more beautiful. We could have just not had sex. We could have just waited. We could have grown old together in California. With something better always ahead. Hello, everyone. So my real name is Matt. I'm actually a professional actor with the Coterie Theater.
And I'm Tandiwa. I'm a junior medical student at UMKC School of Health Sciences.
We've been through the AIDS and STD peer education training. And one of the things that was shocking to me was meeting someone who's living with HIV and finding out they got drunk and had sex without a condom one time. And that's all it took to get HIV.
You know what, Matt? I was amazed to learn that a lot of people don't even know that they have STDs because they don't present symptoms.
That's so true. And our playwright, Lisa Cordes, based these stories on the lives of HIV-positive teenagers right here in Kansas City. Now, these aren't our stories, but they are true stories.
We've trained as STD peer educators, so we're here today to answer any questions that you may have about HIV, AIDS, or other STDs like chlamydia, herpes, or HPV. So while you're thinking of a few things to ask us, we have some things we'd like to get your opinion on.
Yeah, like what's been said to you in the hallway. So we're gonna throw out some statements, like what you might have heard. And if you agree with our statements, you can stand up. And if you disagree, just stay seated. Cool? All right, statement number one. You can get an STD or a sexually transmitted disease from oral sex, which is any mouth to genital contact. You can get an STD from oral sex. Stand up if you agree. Okay, looks like pretty much everybody. Thank you, you can have a seat.
STDs can be prevented through condom use. STDs can be prevented through condom use. Stand if you agree. Okay, thank you.
All right, statement number three. Oral sex isn't considered real sex. Stand up if you agree. Looks like a couple of you. Okay, thanks.
You can get an STD from a hand job, which is hand to genital contact. Stand if you agree. Okay, thank you.
All right, so like we said, we're peer educators here to just help out and answer any questions you have about HIV or any other STDs. So let's just start with those statements. Who has a question about one of those statements we made? Yes?
Yeah, I want to hear about the hand job.
Okay, so can a person get an STD from a hand job? So technically, yes, a person can get an STD from a hand job. So STDs are passed through what we call risk behaviors, which are unprotected oral, anal, vaginal sex, the sharing of drug needles, and also skin to infected genital skin contact. So with the hand job, there's skin to potentially infected genital skin contact there. So somebody could contract something like herpes or HPV, which is the human papillomavirus.
And if you guys remember the other statement we brought up is, can STDs be prevented through condom use? Well, they can, but remember, the condom does not cover the whole entire genital area. Yes?
What's that oral sex one? Isn't oral sex safe?
Great question. Is oral sex safe? Oral sex runs into our category of risky behaviors. And when you have oral sex, it is preferred to use the FDA-approved condom that is a flavored condom.
And so that kind of plays into another one of our statements we made, which was, is oral sex considered real sex? And as far as we're concerned, unprotected oral sex is a risk behavior, so we consider it real sex. Yes?
What about that other one that you were talking about, the other thing that we heard in the hallway?
Okay, can you clarify what you mean? I'm sorry.
Well, whichever one, that we haven't talked about.
Okay, the one that we haven't talked about?
Yeah.
Okay, so the statements we made, we talked about the hand job, we talked about potential with the condom use. Or is oral sex considered real sex? And also, can a person get an STD or sexually transmitted disease from oral sex? And yes, it is possible for a person to get an STD that way.
Yes.
Can you get herpes on your mouth?
Great question. Can someone get herpes on their mouth? Yes, but to clarify, there are two types of herpes. There's the herpes below the waist, which is the HSV2, which is the one that we're concerned about because it's the genital area. But the herpes that you get on your mouth, everyone gets that, and that's just the regular cold sore.
Yes.
So what if, like, somebody gets blood on you? Is that a big deal if somebody gets blood on you?
Okay, great question. So if somebody gets blood on you, can a person get an STD that way? Typically not. Basically, for someone to get an STD, the blood would have to be transferred through their system into the other person's system immediately. That's typically through something like drug use because it's in the needle, and the drug users will pass that needle on to somebody else to get it in their system. But just getting somebody else's blood on you is not a way that people contract HIV or other STDs. So that's why when there's blood, like in school sports and things like that, they just clean it up immediately. That's for other bloodborne diseases as well. So it's not a concern.
Yes.
Is there a cure for STDs?
Great question. Is there a cure for STDs? There are a cure for some STDs, the bacterial infection known as chlamydia, gonorrhea, and trichomonas. Those do have a cure, and most likely if someone is participating in risky behaviors, they should go get tested as soon as possible, and when they get tested, they can be put on antibiotics in order to eliminate those bacterial infections.
And like Tandua said, it's important if people have been at risk that they go get tested. Because some of the bacterial infections, like syphilis, if somebody doesn't get tested and doesn't know that they have it, it can progress to advanced stages. And once it progresses to advanced stages, it is no longer curable at that point. So it's really important for people to get tested if they've been at risk.
Can I get it after eating after somebody?
Okay, can somebody get an STD after eating after somebody? Absolutely not. That's totally safe to eat after somebody, to drink after somebody, even kissing, high fives, hugs. All that we consider casual contact, and people don't get STDs that way.
Yes.
So where did HIV even come from?
Great question. Where did HIV come from? HIV, the human immunodeficiency virus, is said to come from sub-Saharan Africa and the poor butchering practices of chimpanzees, in which the virus mutated over to human beings.
Yes.
Are you telling us not to have sex? Like, what can we do?
Great question. All right, so we know that there's only one 100% way to protect ourselves, and that's through abstinence, which is just defined as not having sex. However, if somebody was in a monogamous relationship, which means that they're only making love to that one person or having sex with that one person, if somebody decided to take that step in their relationship, as in after marriage or something along those lines, that's totally up to them. We're just here to help spread facts and let you all know that abstinence is the only way to 100% way to protect yourselves, and if you are going to participate in sexual activity, we recommend a condom, FDA approved, that's used properly.
Yes.
How long does someone with HIV live?
Great. How long does someone with HIV live? Someone with HIV can live up to a normal lifespan as long as they are tested and they are treated and they stay on their medication and live a healthy lifestyle, such as exercising and dieting.
And HIV is a human immunodeficiency virus that Tandua mentioned before, and that progresses to AIDS, which is the acquired immune deficiency syndrome. So basically, HIV breaks down a person's immune system. So as long as somebody's taking their treatments, they keep their immune system healthy, it never progresses to AIDS, which is when it becomes life-threatening. So like Tandua said, somebody could live a full healthy lifestyle as long as they stay at that HIV status.
This is where I live. It's in a house, but the bed's where I spend most of my time when I'm in my house. I don't know, I guess because when you're in bed you can dream. You know that kind of dreaming you do like right before you fall asleep, where you can kind of control your dreams because part of you's still wide awake. I live with my mom. My dad hasn't been around for a long time, and my mom works a lot, so she's not home much. I lay in bed and I dream about being somewhere else. I dream about the future. At least, I used to. my boyfriend used to bring me candy. He'd always like make this special stop on his way over to my house and, you know, pick up some candy for me. And it was sweet. The boyfriend and the candy. At least he used to be.
Everything changes when you have sex. It doesn't matter with who or what kind it is, it's sex. And it can make you open. No. I don't know, it's different. It's, you get close to people and it's weird because it can make you feel more alone than ever. I can tell you all about it, but then again I can't, so I'll just say this, that it's so scary you just close your eyes and you don't think. I'm not stupid. Just because you spend some time with your brain shut off, it doesn't mean that you're stupid. Hello, my real name is Pancho, and you probably didn't realize that I'm a professional actor with the Coterie Theater.
My real name is Elise, and I'm actually a nurse from the University of Kansas Hospital.
And we've been through an AIDS and STD peer education training. You know, something that really struck me was the fact that HIV has many faces. It doesn't discriminate. And next year's guest speaker, the new face of HIV, could be anybody.
That's true, and so like Pancho was saying, we go to this training process and we actually got to meet people who are HIV positive, and it really hit me when this guy was talking about how he had to watch all of his friends around him die from these diseases that are totally preventable, but nobody ever gives them a voice.
You know, that's spot on. And our playwright, her name is Lisa Cordes. So what she did was she based these stories on the lives of HIV positive teenagers right here in Kansas City. So yeah, the stories weren't about us personally, but they're still true stories.
So like we said, we have been through this training process, and now we're here to answer any questions that you guys have. And not just about HIV, about any sexually transmitted disease, herpes, gonorrhea, chlamydia. So while you're thinking of some things you may want to ask us, we're first going to get your opinions on a few things.
Yeah, and these might be things that you've heard walking around in the hallways here at school. So we're going to throw them out there, all right? And if you agree with the statement that we say, would you mind standing up? And if you disagree with the statement, just stay seated, okay? Pretty simple, so why don't we give it a shot? Statement number 1, all right? Again, stand if you agree, stay seated if you disagree. You can get a sexually transmitted disease from oral sex, all right? So you stand if you agree that you can get an STD from mouth to penis, mouth to vagina, mouth to anus. Any mouth to genital contact is oral sex. All right, thank you. Now, don't worry, we will go over these statements in just a moment, all right? Right before we get to your questions.
Let's try another one though. So stand if you think STDs, sexually transmitted diseases, can be prevented through condom use. Stand if you think STDs can be prevented through condom use. Great, thank you.
Okay, try this one out. Oral sex is not the same as real sex. Oral sex does not count as real sex. Okay.
All right, one more. So stand if you think you can get an STD from a hand job, like hand to genital contact, hand to penis, hand to vagina. Stand if you think you can get an STD from any of those ways. Okay.
Thank you. Now, like Elise said, we are here to answer any and all questions you have about not just HIV, but STDs as well. But before we get to those questions, you know, why don't we talk a little bit more about these statements? Which one of these statements would you like to know more about first?
The hand job one.
Great question. So can somebody get a sexually transmitted disease from a hand job? And it's pretty crazy to think about, but it actually can happen. There are some sexually transmitted diseases that are spread from infected genital skin to skin contact. So like herpes or genital warts. If somebody gets in contact with that infected genital skin, like in a hand job or something like that, and you have hand to vagina or penis contact, they could get an STD that way.
Yeah, and it kind of goes hand in hand with that other statement you have. You know, can STDs be prevented through condom use? So if used correctly from the beginning to the end of any sexual experience, condoms that are FDA approved greatly reduce the risk of getting STDs. But in the case of herpes, those are spread from that skin to infected genital skin contact, so a condom doesn't necessarily protect all of the genital region.
Okay.
So what do you think, is oral sex really sex? What do you guys think?
Thanks for asking. Is oral sex the same as real sex? That's a tricky question, and the definition can vary from person to person. What we're here to tell you are the facts. And the facts are, if someone has oral sex compared to real sex, they're in the same risks factors. The same risks are involved. So anyone can get an STD from both oral or anal or vaginal, any sort of sex. You can get it because of, it's found in blood, it's found in semen, the stuff that comes out of a guy, vaginal secretions, the stuff that comes out of a girl, and all of that is present during both oral and regular sex.
Yeah,
Can you get any STDs from kissing?
great question. Kind of goes back to that hand job question again. So can somebody get an STD from kissing, from hand to genital contact? If anything spread from that infected genital skin to skin contact, if somebody touches or kisses somebody's infected genital skin, they could get an STD that way. Generally we say kissing is safe, just lip to lip contact, but it's important to remember if anybody sees anything concerning a herpes, a wart, anything like that, just to stay away from that infected skin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, kissing is considered to be a casual contact. No one's ever got an STD from kissing, just like no one has ever gotten an STD from playing a school sport. School sports are safe. Eating off someone's plate or fork is safe. No one's going to get an STD that way. Yeah.
So what's the best kind of condom to buy?
All right, what is the best kind of condom to buy? As long as the condom says FDA approved on the box, it is the best condom to prevent against STDs.
And so the FDA stands for Food and Drug Administration. They just do certain types of testing, but it's important to remember that the only 100% way to not get any STD is through abstinence, not having sex.
Yes.
Can you have more than one STD?
Oh, I'm glad we brought that up. So can somebody have more than one STD? Definitely.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, if two people with the same STD, if they have sex, is that okay?
Oh, thanks for asking. All right, if two people with the same STD have sex, is that okay? No, it is not. And in the case of HIV, that can actually make a person's symptoms quite worsen, and it can actually affect the medications that they're taking. So, no matter if it's the same STD or not, if people are deciding to have sex, they should do it with protection.
Uh-huh.
So if a pregnant woman, if she has an STD, can her baby get that same STD?
Cool. So if a mom's pregnant and has a sexually transmitted disease, does that pass to the baby? Not always. With today's technology and testing, there's ways that the baby can still be safe. The mom can give birth to a baby that won't have an STD. They may do a C-section, they may do different kind of medications. It just kind of depends. It's between the mom and that doctor and what kind of test they want to do. But I just want to stress, testing. If anybody has put themselves at risk, had unprotected oral, anal, vaginal sex, or they share drug needles, or they get in contact with infected genital skin, there's a risk to not only themselves, but the baby potentially. So early testing is the key.
How come STDs have cures but the other ones don't?
Great, I'm glad you asked. How come some STDs have cures and others don't? Well, we kind of have to break down STDs into two different categories to understand how they work. Some of them are bacterial STDs, and those are kind of like chlamydia, gonorrhea, syphilis. Those can be cured with antibiotics. Trichomoniasis or pubic lice, those are kind of like little termites or microscopic. They kind of look like crabs, but those are cured with like a medicated shampoo. But then you have viral STDs like the human papillomavirus, which can cause genital warts. You have HPV, that's human papillomavirus. You have herpes, which can cause fluid-filled blisters. And HIV, obviously. Once a person gets those viruses, they have for life because there is no cure for a virus.
Yeah,
How can you tell if someone has an STD?
that's a really good question. So how does somebody tell if somebody has an STD? A lot of times there's no way to know. Sometimes the only way to know is to go get tested. Occasionally with some of them there may be a wart or a blister or a little pubic lice. But again, that's only some of them. So the only way to know is to get tested.
and even some STDs that show symptoms, let's just say gonorrhea, for example, can lead to maybe like a greenish discharge from the tip of a penis, or it can lead to like a burning sensation when peeing. You know, just because those are some symptoms doesn't mean that they're going to show. So that's why I stress what Elise just said. Testing is the only way in knowing if a person has an STD.
You get HIV from sex. You can get it from used needles, but I got it from sex. It's in semen, the stuff that comes out of a guy during sex, and vaginal secretions, the stuff that comes out of a girl. I didn't even sleep around. I only had one boyfriend, and I loved my boyfriend, and my boyfriend loved me. He really did, but there were other girls before me. Había tenido otras, and I still loved him. You never know if there are others. You never know if you're being safe. I know now about being safe, but now it's too late. I could have been using condoms. They can stop AIDS. My boyfriend said he didn't like them. Lots of guys say they don't like them. You know what I say now? ¿Te gusta estar muerto? Look, you don't want to be me. If you have sex, you use a condom. Use it from the start. You put it on as soon as he's hard, and as soon as it's over, you get it out of there and get rid of it. Think of it as basura tóxica. Are you gonna let someone put toxic waste up inside you? Don't have unprotected sex. Don't lose control.
If I had to do it over again, I wouldn't have had sex. You know, like, abstain. I don't expect you to care about me, but you gotta care about yourselves. Sex only lasts a little while. That's it. Don't do it. Your life should last a long time. The more you start thinking about living, the better you're gonna live. Even when no one cares about you. So take care of yourselves. Please, take care of yourself. Hi, my real name is Petey, and you probably didn't realize, but I am a professional actor with the Coterie Theater.
And my real name is Anshana, and I'm a fourth-year med student at UMKC School of Medicine.
Yeah, and we've been through an STD and AIDS peer education training, and what really stuck with me throughout that training is how many people in the Kansas City area alone are being diagnosed with, HIV or AIDS. And what strikes me even more is that these people, the people that might not know because they haven't been tested.
That's right. And something that really struck me is if left untreated, some STDs can cause infertility and even increase a person's likelihood of getting cancer.
Yeah, it's very true. And our playwright, Lisa Cordes, she wrote these stories based on the lives of HIV-positive teenagers living in Kansas City. So these weren't our stories, but they are true stories.
And like Petey said, we're trained as STD peer educators, so we're here to answer any questions you guys might have about STDs like HIV or AIDS or other STDs like chlamydia or herpes or HPV. So while you guys are thinking of some questions you want to ask us, we just want to get your opinions on some things.
Yeah, I mean, it would really help us out to know what you think. So we're going to throw out some statements, and if you agree, I want you to stand, and if you disagree, then you can stay seated. So the first one is you can get an STD from oral sex. All right, thank you.
Okay, next one I'm going to throw out there is STDs can be prevented by condom use. Stand if you agree. All right, thanks guys.
All right, so oral sex isn't considered real sex. All right, thank you.
You can get an STD from a hand job. That's hand to genital contact. You can get an STD from a hand job. Stand if you agree. Okay, thank you.
All right, and like we said before, we are peer educators here to answer any questions that you all may have. So what questions do you have for us?
Can you get herpes from shaking hands with someone who has herpes?
Okay, great question. So can you get herpes by shaking hands with someone who has herpes? No. So herpes is transmitted, like most STDs, by blood, semen, vaginal secretions, breast milk from mother to child, and infected genital skin-to-skin contact. With herpes, it's found in that infected genital skin. So someone would have to come into contact with infected genital skin to contract something like herpes or HPV.
Yeah.
It sounds really easy to get an STD. Should everyone be tested?
Very good question. So should everyone be tested for STDs? Anyone who puts themselves at risk by unprotected oral, anal, vaginal sex, the use of IV drug needles, and that infected skin-to-skin contact that we talked about, anyone who puts themselves at risk should go get tested.
What does gonorrhea look like?
Great question. So what does gonorrhea look like? Gonorrhea is a bacterial STD, which means there is a cure for it. And how it presents, it can present with discharge coming from the penis or vagina. It can come with burning, with urination, painful intercourse, and if left untreated, that's one of the STDs that can even cause infertility.
Is there a condom that covers the whole genital area?
All right, let's talk about that. Is there a condom that covers the whole genital area? Unfortunately, it is not. That's why we say it's so important to practice, safe sex with condoms, and the only 100% way is abstinence. So that's the only way that a person is guaranteed to not get any of these STDs that we talk about.
That's right, and remember, when choosing a condom, it's important to look for that FDA-approved indicated label.
If you have sex with someone just once, can you get something?
Great question. So if you have sex with someone just once, can you get something? Absolutely. So it really only takes one time for someone to contract an STD, and that's why it's really important for anyone that has put themselves at risk with those behaviors that PD just talked about, like unprotected oral, anal, vaginal sex, that they go ahead and they get tested.
Yeah.
Can you get HIV from oral sex?
Okay, good question. Can you get HIV from oral sex? It is possible, yes, it is possible to get HIV from oral sex. Mainly with HIV, more what we're thinking of is that the unprotected vaginal sex, the anal sex, because HIV is spread through blood is one of the ways that HIV is spread through. And it's going to be the most potent way for HIV.